Hello, Silvano Guy here with Pensando System. Today, I'm here with my colleague, Scott Stevens, to talk about security. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Silvano.
Scott, what are the hot topics on security these days?
Well, Silvano, there's actually many things that we could talk about when it comes to security. Obviously, we could talk about things like encryption for data in motion. We could talk about encryption for data at rest. We could talk about different security architectures. How do we protect the applications that are hosted on the bare metal virtual machines or containers within the data center? Or in that context, we could have a full zero trust networking or a micro segmentation conversation about how do you deploy and implement true north-south and east-west security models.
And what will be the topic of the day?
Well, actually, I think there's another more important conversation that we need to have before those. We need to talk about what's the foundation of trust for the devices in your data center upon which you're going to deploy security. How can we guarantee that the architecture you leverage to perform all of these functions for you is one that can be trusted and is itself innately secure?
Oh, this is very interesting. Let's do it. Or better, you can do it.
So this is how you scale, Silvano. So again, today we're going to talk about that fundamental starting point for security. How can you trust the devices deployed in your data center and the software that they load and they run? Has it been compromised by an outside actor? And how can you be sure that the software running on it has been validated from the time of booting all the way through all the more advanced services that are deployed and running that we talked about here in the beginning of the conversation? And from the perspective of Pensando and the distributed services card, this is really a question of the root of trust. Does our product have a root of trust that can allow you to validate that the software that it loads, the encryption keys that it generates, and that the software it's running are safe and are all validated? Now, since the Pensando DSC is such a critical part of the data center infrastructure, by providing all of these edge services such as visibility, telemetry, security, encrypt-decrypt, and various other offload functions, it's critical that it can be trusted to only run software that is certified, but it is further critical that it is also protected from any breach that may happen on any application running on the server that it supports. Pensando does both of these things by supporting a full root of trust on the DSC itself, as well as implementing a hard gap or a PCI firewall to eliminate any ability from the server or some compromised asset on the server to access, modify, or observe anything configured within the DSC. In the event of some sort of breach, this is critical. If security, encryption keys, and access between virtualized workloads resides within the DSC, keeping it beyond the reach of any server application breach is critical for limiting any lateral exposure. In short, the DSC can eliminate any attempt from outside actors to harvest keys, modify policy, or move laterally, or change the security rules that allow them to move. This is not the case if those rules are part of the OS or located as a software function on the server itself. In an attack, once a workload is compromised, the actor tries to leverage that footprint to gain access to other workloads. To do that, they may try to change the security posture, turn off security rules, or otherwise use the captured credentials to now gain access to other systems. But in the case of a Pensando solution, all the attacker can do is access the workload that they compromised. Moving laterally by eliminating security rules is not possible, as the workload does not have access to the security rules themselves. This hard gap ensures that all of the security and security rules for all services cannot be accessed at all during a compromise. But in order to leverage the value of this isolation of keys and security from the hypervisor and OS, we need to ensure that we can trust the DSC itself. So how does that work? The root of trust on the DSC is based on our support of a PUF, or a physically unclonable function, that enables every DSC to power up and generate a unique private key. With that key, we're able to provide per device certification, generate all needed public-private key pairs, and use this to launch a secure boot processor based on an unalterable ROM configuration that begins the chain to securely boot and load all of the software on the DSC. This is also how we form a trusted relationship with the policy and services manager, the controller for the DSC, coming straight from this PUF architecture. With this, the DSC can not only be a fully trusted part of the value delivered from the data center network and servers, but also a unique and valuable defense against any breach by removing the ability of the attacker to modify rules or move laterally between workloads. So in short, this summarizes the foundation of security that Pensando provides within our DSC. From this, all of the other security offerings that I talked about in the beginning can be reliably and safely delivered.
Thank you so much for this explanation. If our listeners are interested in learning more, where can they go?
Well, the best place, obviously, for anybody who wants to learn more about all of this, Silvano, is to pensando.io. Right? We have all of this information, we have our videos, we have our white papers, and we can help anybody learn more about this new model of bringing cloud scale to the masses and simplifying and removing the complexity from data center architectures. And of course, we talked here about that basis of why we can be a trusted part of that sitting within each server. But there's a whole lot of other really interesting conversations to look at, from telemetry and visibility and troubleshooting and obviously security, and all of these functions that we can provide within the data center fabric itself.